Hi, my name is Crystal, and if you are returning to this channel, you'll see that this video looks a lot different than what I've recorded in the past. Usually I have, travel vlogs, things about hair care and stuff. So this channel has honestly been all over the place, but this video is very different than anything I've ever done in the past. Um, because this video is really born out of the place where I feel like for the first time in my life, I have the most amount of clarity I've ever had. And it's so fitting that the name of this channel is Crystal Clear because at the time that I made it, I had no idea I would be making these types of videos of just talking about my journey and the clarity that I've gained along the way. So I don't really know what the title of this video will be, but I will say that I've had a very profound shift these past couple of weeks. And in order for me to make sense of everything and also a way to kind of like document everything that has been happening, I wanted to sit down and make these videos because maybe by going through the process of talking about everything will also help someone else. And that is why I write. That is why I've done everything that I've done in the past, because I honestly wanted to help people be better people, come out of, their own suffering. And I can only talk about my journey because that's what I've lived. I was given the, I guess, nudge from universal mind, from God, from source, to start talking about and documenting this journey of realization about who I am as a spiritual being having this human experience. And there's so much to talk about, so much to cover, but I wanted to know, like, okay, well, what do I talk about? What is the first thing that I talk about? Because there's been so much. And I felt that the best way to start is to start at the beginning. So I'll start at when I first had I don't like these words like spiritual awakening or whatever, but because I don't have a better word to describe it, I'll use the word spiritual awakening. So at the beginning of my spiritual awakening, I was 23. And it's a time in my life I will never forget because it was a time when I felt the most broken, the most disconnected from who I was and also from the people in my surroundings who were trying to be there for me, but I didn't trust them. I didn't want to let them in. I kept telling myself that they're not going to understand. They'll never get it because I'm the only one that has lived this. And I was in such a dark pattern of thinking and in such a dark place internally that on the outside, externally, it looked like everything was fine because I was achieving all my goals. I was, doing a really good job at pretending that I wasn't drowning internally. So I went through this period at 23 where it was I think it was my right before I graduated. So it was my last semester of my first master's degree. And during this time, I was going through a breakup, my first breakup. I was trying to achieve my first graduate degree. And I kept telling myself that once I finish, then I can be happy. Once I get my degree and graduate, I'll be happy. And I knew I was kind of lying to myself, like subconsciously, I knew that was a lie. I knew that unless I could find a way to be happy in that moment, then I would never be happy because I will always keep chasing the next goal. I would always keep trying to be that overachiever that I felt everyone loved. And so that's really where all of that success and all of that overachievement, if that is the word, but all of that, the activities I was doing was born out of that fear that if I didn't prove that I was good enough, then I wouldn't be able to be loved. And so that's what I told myself. So it was a Tuesday morning, and I remember this day because it was cloudy outside, and I had these gray curtains in my room. And I kept telling myself, I remember one day I woke up, and this Tuesday I woke up, and I was literally awakened by sadness. That's the only way I can describe it. Like I was so sad and so broken that I just woke up. Like I couldn't sleep. I could not find rest. And I remember waking up this Tuesday morning and I said to myself, I wish I never woke up. Like, I wish I could just go to sleep and never wake up. And I remember having that thought. And I remember looking at that thought. Like, I was observing that thought. I was witnessing that thought pass through my thinking pass through my mind. And then I remember in that split second when there was some distance between me, myself, the observer, and the thought itself, I could really see that I was not that thought, and that thought was being manifested or born out of me, out of my brokenness. And I don't know how I saw that glimpse of light. I don't know, maybe it's because I was so low at that time that I needed something, and source understood that I needed to see some source of light, or I would not have the hope or the faith that I needed to continue this journey. So I remember, I'm looking at this thought and I witness it, and I think the next thought after that was, well, if I could witness that thought, if I could observe that thought, then that means that thought is not me. That means that thought is something that I created. And so then the next thought after that was, then if that thought isn't me, then who am I? And then I remember, because at this time I was, my first graduate degree is human development and family studies. So at this time I was taking a lot of development courses, and I was learning about how children are developed, especially in those first 7 years of life, like those very vital years of life, and understanding how to interact with the world and how to form those social connections. I remember how I was as a child and how happy I was. I remember how I smiled a lot as a child, how I was very trusting of people and very trusting of life. I remember how I loved just being around people. I loved being around my dad, my siblings. I loved everything about being a child and being so happy and carefree. And I remembered that. So I remember once I had that realization that maybe my child version of myself before my dad died, before the pain, maybe that's who I really am. And I remember within myself, I made a vow that I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have to get back to the truest form and truest version of who I am. And that was the beginning of, one, my spiritual awakening, and two, just the process that was born out of that, and how I went on this journey of self-discovery. And that's why I wrote my first book, and I kind of talk about in more detail what was going on during that time, but that's just kind of like the overview of it. And I don't want this video to be too long, because this is the first of maybe many videos, if I can get out of my own way and convince myself to upload it. So if you're watching this, then that means that I took the leap of faith and I uploaded it. So hopefully I'll do that. But just understand that you're not alone, and that I think that the reason why I went through that was to have a story to tell, and to maybe be that light and that beacon for someone else who is maybe in a dark place, and maybe they're feeling like they don't really have any hope, or they don't have that light, that glimpse of light to remind them of who they are, because maybe they weren't the kind of child that I was in my childhood. So I will say that, like, there's a lot that really goes into the process of understanding who you are, and getting to really just disrupt a lot of the programs that we've been given about who we are, and about who people told us that we are. And so it's like I said, it's a very long and drawn out process, but that was the beginning stages of understanding who I am. So in this video of starting at the beginning and realizing that my suffering was born out of that place of just simply not knowing who I was. I was so consumed in darkness when I was in my teens and early adulthood that I had no idea if I was coming or going. And I understood it during that time that a lot of my suffering came out of the trauma of witnessing a parent die at such a young age, and that ripple effect that happened from that experience. And I was so unaware that all of this thinking and this habit of thinking was taking place in my subconscious mind, that it was creating a lot of the pain and suffering that I was experiencing in my waking life. And I didn't want to continue living life as a traumatized adult, or a traumatized child in an adult body. So I kept going, and I've gotten to a place to where I'm 29 now. So at the time I had that event at 23, and it's been 6 years, and I can honestly say that I've never felt like this aligned. I've never felt this sure of my calling and the light that I am bringing to this world. And there's always going to be a process of understanding who I am. Like, I've realized that that you never fully arrive. It's only expansion. It's only evolution. It's only understanding how you are showing up in this world. And I've been different people at different phases in my life, so I will have to continue to understand who that person is as I continue to grow and evolve. Yeah. So I hope that this video is helpful to you. I don't really want to edit it a lot. This is from the heart, so I want it to be as raw and authentic as possible. I just came out. I currently live in Germany, so I came out to sit by the water and enjoy all of God's green nature because I feel very grounded when I'm in nature. I feel very, I don't know, like aligned. I don't feel like I have to rush. I hope that my journey can inspire you to take a leap towards your highest self, towards your greatest good, and understand that there's nothing to be afraid of but the enemy that we have created for ourselves internally. And we do have the power to free ourselves, but we have to start thinking about what we've been thinking about, as Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. And he has helped so many people through this process of self-transformation, which is what I'm currently in the process of writing about now, just through my own personal journey of going through this self-transformation and all the periods of transitioning that I've gone through in my life. So like I said, I just hope that this is helpful. And I know that if you're watching this, especially if you gotten to this point, then that means that a part of what I'm saying, or maybe all of what I'm saying, is resonating with what's inside of you. And you know that there is something more there. And maybe you don't really understand what it is. Maybe you can't articulate it yet, but you understand that there is something more that's inside of you, something more that you could bring, and something more that you can become. But I urge you to just start with understanding that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of those thoughts. And just as easy as you have thoughts of not belonging, thoughts of unworthiness, thoughts of being disconnected, those thoughts are trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you what's deep inside of your subconscious programming and what's really, truly what has been given to you over the years, all the garbage that's in there. And our job is to really look at it. And we're not taught how to look at ourselves. We're not taught how to reflect. We're not taught how to proceed with self-examination. We're not taught these things. So that's what I want to show up and do, is talk about my process of self-reflection and my journey of self-discovery. And hopefully some of the things that have helped me can also help you. So I hope that you have a good day or night whenever you're watching this. And yeah, it's good to finally start talking about these things and stop standing in my own way.